Hello everybody and welcome to this render tutorial in which I'm going to show you how easy it is to create great looking plan elevation and isometric renderings of an architectural space like this one. In this session, I will show you how we very quickly set up our environment, for example, with a background, add different cameras to, for example, have an isometric view or have an elevation view. And then I will spend actually quite some time also on exploring how we could use different lighting positions and lighting strategies to illuminate everything the way how we want. So as you can see, we will work for some area lights. We do one test also with a sunlight and also use an external HDRI file to illuminate the environment. And in the end, then we will basically end up with some really great looking images like this. And the nice thing is with the Eevee render engine, those render literally in a matter of seconds. And with all that said, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. So we are in Blender, as you can see. I have the demo file open. The download link is in the description of this video. This is a raw, untouched export from Shaper 3D. And everything what we have to do is now touch up this import. Then we're going to design the scene, add lights, camera, and do the renderings. So our first step, to select everything, press A. Then we can go to Object, Menu, go to Parent, and click Clear Parent and keep transformation. So everything is now a child. With this now we can select the root object, press X and delete. In the 3D view, select everything by pressing A, go to a side view, press G, press Z, and move everything up a little bit. Pretty nice. Okay, so now we have our kind of like stage nicely positioned on the ground, but everything is transparent in the background. So let's add a plane. This plane should be really big. So we can press S and then move the mouse to the right side a few times. So it's a really big ground plane. Perfect. Okay. On the right side, we can then rename this collection, for example, into office room to make things easier. A new collection, right click. This one I will call scene. This plane I will drag into there, maybe call this ground. And then this scene collection I drag into this kind of like the main scene collection and release the mouse. So this way they are independent. Very good. Okay. If we then switch to the material preview mode, we are also in Eevee render engine and ray tracing. Everything actually looks pretty nice. We can go to the viewport shading settings and rotate this HDR a little bit and simulate a little bit, kind of like an evening or morning sunrise, sunset. Looks quite charming. If we then take a look at this model, everything looks actually quite nice, but there is one mistake here. And this is something I wanted to point out because this is always something that can take place when you design something inside one CAD application and export it to a render application. I also noticed this with assets I downloaded from the SketchUp 3D warehouse. And that is that sometimes while the texture of a material comes across, the reflectivity definition is a little bit messed up. And if we pay attention to this wall, it looks very reflective. And this should actually be a kind of matte wall paint. So to fix this, it's pretty easy. I can simply click on that object. Then here I see, there's that material. Can rename this so it's easier to find. The roughness I turn down to 0 and oh, there we see it. This is like totally reflective. So we go to specular and turn this one off. So now we do have actually a perfectly matte material. What I can do now is, if I would like to add a little bit of very blurry reflectivity to it, we can do this via the code command. It's kind of like an extra coding on top. Wall paint we can get in different versions, matte to very glossy. And if I play here with this weight value, I can increase the amount of reflectivity. As we can see, okay, so there is something. This is too artificial. This feels like a plastic wall. So if we then go ahead and change the roughness, look at that. Then we can see that there is something going on, but now it's a little bit of a shimmer. Perfect. So that's good. Very nice. If I zoom into the other objects, take a look at this wood material, the way how this was exported. This is really beautiful. Cool. Okay. And this type of reflectivity issue with Shaper, for example, I basically see only take place with the default material, but not with the other materials. So with all that said, we have actually everything ready, and we can switch now to the render mode. So it's nice and dark. I will select my scene, go add light, area light. The area light is down here. I press G and Z, move this area light up, let's say to there. And let's give this one quite a lot of power. Oh, this looks actually kind of cool. Because this is a small light, it casts very sharp shadows. If we set this from 1 foot to 10 feet, it's a much bigger light. So as you can see already, the shadow changes. So it's actually quite nice. Cool. Okay. We also can play with the world color. We can make this brighter. Then you see now everything is like very, very bright, but also a little bit washed out. If we lower this a little bit, there we can kind of like make a nice composition of the background light that's very uniform, and then we add contrast light with the light bodies we're going to place. All this takes place inside the scene collection. This area light I can rename area top. Let's go to a side view. Wow, look at this. This is actually such a nice orthographic already. It's 3D rendered. Then make a copy of this area light. Shift D, move this to here. Press R to rotate. There we are. I go back into a 3D view. Later we will look from here. I want the drop shadow to go to the right side. Yep, this is actually quite nice. If I go back here to the light and change this one more time also again to like 1 foot, maybe turn this one off, then now I can see what actually this light is doing. What happens if we make this stronger? 200. Oh, that's actually quite nice. Pay attention to how the individual faces get really nice coloring. Everything that faces the light gets a lot of light and is brighter, and the rest is darker. 10 feet. Makes everything a little bit softer. Very nice. Can call this side, can call this top. Yeah. What we have to do now, to be careful, is we work with the background light, with a top light and a left light. We want to adjust our light values so we always create different types of contrast. So this is a tick wider, this is a tick less illuminated, and has a different gray value. So if I select this one and say maybe 80, it got a little bit less strong. With 50, there you can even better see that contrast. This really helps reading later the three-dimensional quality of your design. 300, pretty good. The values I put in here are simply really, well, just a random value I pick, and then I see how is this influencing the rendering. Okay, we also would like to do a rendering. And let me show you one very easy way to create now a plan view, elevation view, and then also an isometric view. So let's do the plan view. We go to top view, then we can press Shift A to add a camera, or we go add camera. I go into a 3D view. I went into a top view because then this way the camera is already looking straight down. I press G and Z and move this camera up. Switch into camera view. This is actually a rectangular space. So if I want to, I can change the document format into 1:1. So for example, 1080 by 1080 or 500 by 500 based on how big your image has to be. And we're looking into this space directly top down, no? I move this camera a little bit further up, and then I go back into the camera. Let's do a rendering, and there we are. That's pretty nice, actually. Very simple in the steps, and look at this really nice glossiness, actually, on that paint. So this is actually a perspective, kind of like look down, not really truly a plan view. Let me show you how we can now do a plan view. I switch to a different slot for the rendering. I select the camera, and to turn this into a plan view, we just have to take out the perspective for shortening. And in 3D rendering, we always do this by switching to an orthographic camera. And that is actually it, nothing else. Now, where the camera is positioned doesn't matter. To adjust the scale, as you can see, there's then a scale slider. If I render this one, there you see it. Quite nice. Cool. Okay. To do the plan, sorry, the elevation view, it's pretty much the same process. I go to a side view, then I add the camera, move the camera maybe up a little bit, go to the side, G and Y, move the camera back. Now I would like to jump into this camera. So I go to view camera and then say set active camera. You can also press right mouse button and add this to your quick favorites, by the way. And then when I press Q, there's actually my camera jump. Flop, there we are. G and Z, so press Z 2 times. And as you can see now, I can look into the space. Camera looks horizontally, so it doesn't look down or up. And to go into a nice elevation view, we just changed this to orthographic. Zoom in a little bit more. There we are. Sweet. And this is actually how easy this is. pretty complicated, not pretty complicated, pretty uncomplicated. Now, if I do a rendering, let's go to slot 3, click render. I have a gray background and I want that to be transparent. I can do this by going to render, film, make the film now transparent. And you see here already there it is transparent. I also have this ground plane. This casts actually the shadow. When we turn this off, it's gone. Render. There. Very nice. Kind of cool. It's maybe a little bit unusual, but what happens if we would like to create kind of like a 45-degree camera looking in there? So we do the following. We can go add and empty. I use the sphere. I can make this nice and big with S to scale it. And then I go to front view or side view. Oh, this looks also really nice as an elevation view. Shift A, add a camera. Now the camera looks along the x-axis. GNX, move this back. And here comes the trick now. I select the camera. I select the empty. And then actually, hold on. Before I do this, let me select the empty. Press N. Let's change this to 1. And go to the empty. And here we scale this one up. This is the display size icon. This is actually not the scale. Again, camera, shift left mouse button, select the empty. This time we are going to make the empty be the parent. So the camera can go individually, but if we now select the empty and rotate it, look, the camera then follows it. So minus 45. Let's go into the camera. There we are. That's not really perfect. So we select the empty, GZ, move this up a little bit, select the camera, go to orthographic, and there we are. See, this is actually quite nice. All this, then we can see the space. It's kind of like an interesting elevation view because it shows the three-dimensionality in it. So now if we very quickly render this, we have a nice new image. There we are. Look at these nice images we created. Let's go to a different slot. And what I would like to show you now is how easy we make that isometric image. This empty. All we need to do is to rotate it along its y-axis. So there we are, 45 degrees. Go back into the camera. There we are. And render. So there we are. If we press J, then we can go through the individual slots. And these, as you can see now, these are very nice illustrative representations of that space using orthographic or isometric or a mix of those as scene presentations. All we did was make a plane for the first ones, add some lights, and maybe in the last step what I could show is as an idea, instead of, for example, using these area lights, we can also use a sunlight. So let's add the sunlight. There we are. GZ, move this one up. I turn this off so they do not emit any light and are not rendering. Then I can rotate the sunlight. Sun is actually pretty weak. Crank this up. So this is actually now pretty harsh light. And based on the rotation, I can also simulate maybe evening or something. the angle that actually makes very sharp shadows or softer shadows. Let's turn on the ground plane so we can see this actually a little bit better there. Okay, so we can turn on this jitter here. That makes better shadows, by the way. There, shadows. Yeah, 2 rays, 4 rays. There, it gets a little bit nicer. If you go back into the camera, this is now what we're seeing. I'm going to go maybe to 5. Very good. Do another rendering. Oh, well, and the ground plane actually was visible but doesn't render. But in here, now take a look at this kind of like really nice long shadow. It has this image is very vibrant. And the nice thing is these images take less than 2 seconds to render, so it's actually really good. Okay, the last option now is we can still maybe illuminate this with an HDRI. I do have in here, for example, also added this HDRI. When you click on this, you get to the menu where you can install them. The download link also has this HDRI included too. That's actually quite nice. I would like this light to be used in my rendering too. So I switch to the shader editor and world, and then very quickly add myself an environment texture, image texture. Oh no, not image texture. This needs to be environment texture. There we are. Click open. There is the HDRI image. Then this will go into mapping and vector, and the vector will go into generated texture coordinate system. There we are. The strength then we can set to 1. Very good. And then here with this rotation, we can rotate this around. There we are. So now essentially we have rebuilt exactly the same orientation for that light. Then this is kind of like very strong. Let's go to slot 6 and render. There, and we can compare Alt J, J, Alt J, J. Now you can see the different qualities, and this is then also a matter of personal preference. This is just with 2 lights, with the sunlight, with the HDRI. Okay, very good. Then all later you can do is go image save as a PNG or JPEG, and then load this into your presentation. When we have a ground plane, we have a colored backdrop, and if we do not use a ground plane, for example, like here, we have a transparent backdrop. If you then save it as PNG with the RGB AA for alpha transparency, then this is ready to be inserted into any presentation without a backdrop or background around your object, like in this case. Very good. We are done.